Please enjoy this message from David Arquette sent in by the fabulous Carrie Tenney.
Hey Ryan, how are you? Thanks for doing the Scream podcast.
Like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Curly, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. I truly appreciate everybody out there who supports the podcast either by listening every week, supporting me on social media, or subscribing to the Patreon. So if you haven't subscribed to the Patreon of Scream with Ryan C. Showers, there are so many amazing opportunities that come along with this. So in season 6, we're going to be offering what I'm calling 30 Years of Scream, 30 Questions, a Scream with Ryan C. Showers interview. So this will be offered to eligible Patreons after 3 months of subscription. I mean, you get to come on with me for 30 minutes and have an interview where I ask you 30 speedrun questions, but also some deep questions about Scream and your Scream personality and what Scream means to you and how you've also experienced Scream since it's come back to life in the mainstream since 2020. So that is coming in season 6. Subscribe and you can come on and have a one-on-one with me and celebrate 30 years of Scream for its 30th anniversary. In addition to the interview that's coming in season 6, joining the Patreon gets you access to our community group chats on Instagram. You can come to the group Zooms, which are held quarterly, and the eligibility to come on the podcast with me for main topic episodes by request. Also with the Patreon comes a monthly bonus episode. For most months, I'm going to be releasing an audio commentary of a Scream movie or a Scream-related film. Some months we'll be releasing a group Zoom episode on Patreon that is just released to the Patreon, not the public. I've really enjoyed doing the audio commentaries. I have a library of them at this point. I've done the first 4 Scream films. I've done Halloween. I've done A Nightmare on Elm Street. I've done Halloween H2O. I Know What You Did Last Summer, etc., etc., etc. And I'm so excited to continue doing these as we go into season 6. I need to thank the producers of the podcast. They include TJ Jones, who does all the graphic design work for the episode title cards. I need to thank Ashley Summers, who is my Taylor Swift girl. She helps me with the Taylor Swift song of the week, but also with the Scream game of the week that you can find on Instagram. Usually we post on Wednesday or Thursday mornings. And you can find her at SquirrelandSpud9 on Instagram. And I also need to thank my friend Fernando. He is FN Prescott on Instagram. And he also runs the Isabel May Online Instagram profile. He helps me with posts throughout the week to keep the social media and Scream love alive. I've had many wonderful experiences and adventures with this podcast, including being on the cover of the Wall Street Journal. Back in 2022, I was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal. So crazy. But none of this would be possible without the people who follow me and support me on social media. So if you haven't subscribed to my profiles there, I'm Scream with RCS across social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Also, if you could please do me a solid and give me 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, that would really go a long way and help me out. In addition, I need to thank the Stab investors and Daddy Ghostfaces of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. First, Mama Ghostface, I need to thank Carrie Tenney. I also need to thank Daddy Ghostfaces, Corey Wilson, Brett Janovich, and Andrew Dominguez. I need to thank Stab investors, including Josh Carr, Amar Karim, Kevin Abner, Ali, Roy Garza, Stevie Shears, P. Dougie05, Gustavo Mora, Mark Vieira, Scream Queens Podcast, both Josh and Justine, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, Ryan Not Dying Young, David D, Jess Mariano, Sam Levy, Tamika Jones, Josh Camillari, Ivan Valance, Christian Ranke, and John Cardy. All right, everyone, thank you. Please enjoy the rest of the episode and consider subscribing to the Patreon, and you can come on for your Scream interview. 30 years of Scream, 30 questions. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. So this has been a really great week, I think, for the podcast. I loved the episode that we put out on Monday featuring Amar Karim and Corey Wilson, and we talked about everything under the sun. And I also made a huge announcement about the 30 Years of Scream 30 Questions interview that will be available to Patreon subscribers coming soon in season 6. I go into depth of what this new feature of the podcast is and how you can join the Patreon and come and get your own interview with me on this show. You can either check out Sunday's episode or you can check out the bonus audio that I uploaded where I outline very specifically. So this episode, I believe, is equally as accomplished as the one that we put out on Sunday. So this episode features, for the main segment, my friend Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault. He is all over social media. He does really wonderful graphic design and video work. So it's a really nice conversation about Scream 7, yes, but also the culture around Scream. And Joey was like the perfect person for this. Like, as Joey told me about Scream 7, it just kind of illuminated things about the culture of Scream 7. And it just made me very aware of things about like the culture of like this current era, but also just the culture of Scream overall over these past 30 years. I think Joey is a really wonderful representation of somebody who's a part of the Scream culture and a participant, as I consider myself to be, someone who understands everything, not just 5 and 6 and not just 7, somebody who understands the 90s culture, the Scream 4 culture, and here we are. So first, I want to announce that The Lincoln Lawyer, it has been reported that it will end after its 5th season. So it just finished season 4, and Neve Campbell got to come back after being somewhat absent in season 3. So Neve will be in season 5, but this will be the final year that it's on Netflix, which is, I'm kind of surprised in a way, but maybe not. You know, The Lincoln Lawyer has been an extremely successful show. Commercially, it's been one of the top rated, one of the top viewed shows on Netflix for all 4 of its years. And for me, it's just interesting because, you know, The Lincoln Lawyer began, I think the first season aired right after Scream 5. And it was such a hallmark, such a staple of this time, even though like we haven't really talked about The Lincoln Lawyer on this podcast. And even if like a lot of people don't even watch The Lincoln Lawyer, we always knew that it was out there and that Neve was thriving in a big franchise series outside of just Scream, you know, and it's ending now after 5 years. So all of my reflection that I've been doing about this era and like the Spyglass era, and also introducing this 30 Years of Scream 30 Questions interview concept, I think all of it's justified because yes, like one part of this Spyglass era is coming to an end with The Lincoln Lawyer being this like co-pilot with Neve in her career. You know, that back then when Scream 5 came out, you know, Neve had this show, Courtney Cox was doing Shining Vale, which was also a horror comedy show. So I really pushed hard for Shining Vale. That was canceled after 2 seasons, but it is kind of the end of an era for some ways with Neve. But you know, when one door closes, another one opens. So now I'm going to kind of get into like the culture around Scream 7 and the culture of Scream and like kind of prelude to my conversation with Joey. Okay. So in a weird way, Melissa Barrera, she's been a divisive figure since Scream emerged, you know, back in with Scream 5 in 2022, right? With her acting performance, with the writing of Sam, and then Scream 6, the weird moral grayness of the character, like, and then of course, you know, her exit and how that has just been like the most divisive thing, the most toxic thing for any fandom to survive. She's been in a controversial figure for such a long time. And finally, I feel like with her recent Variety interview where she called her co-stars, Scream 5 and 6, scabs for doing Scream 7 without her, and where she spread conspiracy theories with no evidence that the box office was rigged by the producers of Scream, by Spyglass and Paramount. Read into that what you will, but it's a completely baseless, false claim that she's spreading to discredit the movie's success and create doubt in the legitimacy of our institutions. So shame on Melissa Barrera for that. But in a weird way, I feel like Melissa has united the fandom. Finally, we are kind of like the most united we've ever been, at least since the release of Scream 5 or that time before, with her comments, because her comments were so vile and disgusting and just reprehensible, you know? But she now represents something even more sinister and dark, which is the conspiracy theory aspect of her allegations against the movie. It's just crazy to me. Like, you know, Anna Camp and Kevin Williamson commented on the boycott. You know, Kevin Williamson talked about like, oh, well, you know, I just really support everyone's right to their free speech and their blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, you know, so, but isn't it just crazy people that like Kevin Williamson is like kind of forced to genuflect to these people who want to hurt his movie. It's just kind of craziness, you know. And Anna Camp, you know, she shared my post on Instagram and she took it down and she was kind of like shamed for not supporting the boycott of her own work, of her own film. It's just wild to me that that is the standard to which we must support or coddle the people who boycott the film and try to hurt the culture around Scream. We must do all of this, but Melissa's allowed to spread conspiracy theories and call people scabs, and she's allowed to compare Scream to pedophiles and Woody Allen. Like, what are we doing here? It's interesting just how much the culture has changed over the last couple of years. There was this horrible situation that Scream was put in, which was that Scream 5 made it so that there was like, you know, a walking a fine line of like, you know, really emphasizing the trio in a way, but never giving us like the full fulfillment of the trio. Yet we have these new characters, but they're divisive in their own ways. And then Scream 6 came along and it was just so tilted in the direction of favoring a new generation, out with the old and with the new, and in with, you know, weird morally gray characters and like a forced friendship group and just like bad killers and just like whatever, it doesn't matter, you know. But like, and at that point, a lot of us OG fans were like, whoa, this is not Scream. We want the franchise back. We want the real Scream back, which, you know, we got in Scream 7. And I just feel like at this point, like there was a moment where like, you know, Spyglass, in it, because of their approach to Scream 5, and how they handled Sydney and the trio versus the new cast, and then how everything happened with Scream 6, down to not only Nev's contract, but also just down to like even the use of Gail, you know, having her so limited and so small, and they shrunk her to such a point. They gave her a great scene, but, you know, within like, she's only in the movie for like 15 minutes for real, like within like, you know, the hour mark and the hour 18 mark. That's the only time we actually see Gail on the screen, you know, and it's just unfortunate. And it fostered and it bred this culture. And then when you throw in what happened with Melissa and the exit and like the fact that she was taken out and then Nev was brought back, I do blame kind of the studio for putting the fandom in this situation. It created such a war of the culture. It was like the old fans versus the new fans. And I know some people are like, oh my gosh, we should just be this. We should just be toxically positive. And like, oh my God, no, it's not. We should stop comparing and we should stop doing a competition. But regardless of like whether you say that or not, whether you believe that or not, whether you know, just try to be toxically positive and do the both sides thing, it doesn't change the reality of the situation, right? But what I'm saying here is I do believe that the OG fans, we kind of won the culture of Scream, and we won the battle of Scream because of everything that happened in Scream 7. I think Scream 7 proved that like recentering Sydney, kind of returning to like the storyline that Wes built from Scream 1, 2, and 3, and 4. The type of killer, the depth of the killer, returning Gail to a place of importance, the tidiness of the movie, the atmosphere, the setting, the character of Sydney and it being about her family. The movie speaks for itself in terms of like where the culture ended, if that makes sense. And it's interesting because, you know, let's just not forget, like it was this culture war, and why people who just wanted to say, oh, well, both sides, oh my God, I like them both. Okay, sure, great. But the thing about like the 5 and 6 culture and like this new age fans, like they made it impossible for people to have free speech to even talk about like, hey, I didn't really love the core 4 and I didn't love how they kept getting stabbed and no one died, until Alison Brie came along and she just kind of like punched them in the nose and let speech not be chilled anymore, you know? And I feel like going from Screams 5 to 6 to 7, I feel like specifically from 6 to 7, we may have lost a lot of those new fans that kind of, in my opinion, made the franchise toxic. The Mikey Madison fans, the Melissa Barrera fans, like they made the franchise and like the fandom toxic in a way that like it never really was before. The worst thing you could say about the fandom before was people were especially like rude and mean and unfair to Scream 3. You know, even if we've lost people along the way, I think that there's a piece in that, you know, that losing the right people makes us stronger, I think. And at least we know going forward that we can operate with the right tools and the right people involved, and like we can participate in conversations in good faith. And, you know, this kind of goes to like the point, like, again, like, you know, Scream 5, it gets all this credit for introducing a new cast of characters and blah, blah, blah. I just want to ask everybody this and reflect on this. If Scream 5 came out without the trio, if this was just the Sam and Tara show, there was no Judy, there was no Sydney, there was no Gail, there was no Dewey, would that movie have been as successful as it was? Would it have made the money? Would it have the legitimacy? Would it have the class that Scream 5 was treated with? My answer to that is absolutely not. Scream 5 would be seen as like a really cheap, like fan fiction-y thing. Like, oh my God, Billy Loomis had a secret love child. But when you have the trio there, you have Dewey's death in particular, and you have the blending of the generations, that gave it a legitimacy in a way that it wouldn't have if it was just the Sam and Tara show. And that's like a huge observation that about the culture around Scream over the last couple of years that people do not take into consideration, you know. And ironically, then again, you know, Scream 6, everyone said that the best scene in the movie was Gail. Gale, yet they only showed us Gale for, this small amount of time in this small window. And half the time when we saw Gale, she didn't feel like herself. She felt like herself in her chase scene, but she didn't otherwise. And it's just like, wow, so you're saying the best scene in Scream 6 was Gale Weathers. Yet let's hide her. Let's not give her a beginning. Let's not give her an ending. We'll give her just a set piece, and we'll just reheat old nachos of Scream 2 and just throw away her character development. If everyone is saying that Gale Weathers is the best part of Scream 6, then we want to see her. Show us Gale. We want her. And I think that's what Scream 7 kind of gave us, right? And it's just unfortunate because the critics will always kind of leave a stain on Scream 7. I hope that is not the case, and I hope that we all can just collectively just decide that critics suck. They fucking suck. They are a very isolated group that is within an echo chamber on Twitter. They're out of touch with like the rest of the world, the rest of society. The world, that may I add, gave Scream 7 a box office of $215 million. That is accurate and verified, Melissa Barrera. But, all of the film critics who took a stand against Scream 7 and just kind of gave it a bad review because of Melissa, and even went so far to say, Free Palestine in their review. We should just reject the unprofessionalism of that. Unfortunately, that is like the only flaw against Scream 7 in terms of it winning the culture war, because look at like the results. Like Scream 5 made $140 million. Scream 6 made $168 million. Scream 7 made $215 million without Melissa Barrera, and it's verified. It's not a hoax. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. Box office numbers don't lie, Melissa, but people sure do. So a big theme in this episode that Joey and I do here is we talk about what comes next. And I say to him, that like I'm very calm about Scream 7. I'm at peace with Scream 7. Like to bring Scream back and to not give Sydney a moment, to not give her and Gale a story like that we got with Scream 7. That's why we were all so restless, I think. And now that we've had that need fulfilled, it's like, well, what comes next? Of course, we want more Sydney. Joey, his big argument to me here is like, hey, don't settle for just Scream 7. Like Scream 7 is like chapter 1. We want to see chapter 2 and 3. He is right. I'm trying to undersell so that the universe over rewards, if that makes sense, by giving us a Sydney and Tatum Scream 8 and 9. My friend Beyond the Mask reported that there are rumors that Scream and the producers and Spyglass, they're basically approaching this franchise as more of anthology as opposed to a long running like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 cohesive vision. And that's kind of hard for a lot of Scream fans to adjust to, because we operated and lived under the world of Wes Craven, where he made a chapter 1, 2, 3 perfect, well-rounded bow of Scream 1, 2, and 3 of the trilogy, and then continued that with the same actors, the same writer with Scream 4 all those years later. And there was just a consistency and a continuity, and that's what a lot of people believe makes Scream better than the average franchise. That's what made Scream legendary. So now, to go from that to this alleged idea that Scream is kind of an anthology and we're going to have just standalone movies and standalone stories from now on through the rest of time, it's kind of disappointing. We're not saying that we want cliffhangers, but we would love to see another trilogy that feels like the original trilogy, where it's all one complete story. You can watch it as almost like one long 6-hour movie that has an arc for the entire 6 hours. And unfortunately, that may be gone. Who knows? I hope it's not. We should be grateful, and we can always love the original trilogy for that. And we can always value these individual standalone movies. But I think that Scream 8 should be like the Scream 2 middle chapter, and then Scream 9 can be shared like between Sydney and Tatum, where Sydney gets more of the focus, and to kind of round out a trilogy. I think that would be like my preference. But if we have to do standalone movies for the rest of time, that's fine, I guess. I mean, they all are kind of standalone. I mean, 5 and 6 are dependent on each other to an extent, but there's a huge difference between Scream 5 and 6. And that's what I've said basically since Scream 6 came out, is like, these are not the same, dude. Scream 5 is the movie that kind of resurrects the franchise, tackles the requel, gives us a new cast and younger cast, right? But also balances the legacy. And like I said earlier, like Scream 5 would not be anything without the trio and Judy Hicks. Like without the legacy, without those cast members, like Scream 5 would not be how many people treated it upon its release, as like, oh, the return of Scream. It would be seen as like fan fiction-y, like the sequel that we never would have wanted from a Scream movie, right? It would be treated more like the MTV version of Scream. That's what it would be treated like. But yeah. And then Scream 6, you can look at Scream 6 because the trio is just thrown out the window. Dewey and Sydney aren't involved, and Gale is there, but she's there in the most minute way, the most narrowly focused way, and in the worst way she's ever been, despite having a good phone call and chase scene. It's a movie that takes place in, it's about being the city movie, the urban movie with a new cast. eye roll, whatever. And then Scream 7 you can look at as like the standalone Sydney OG movie, like the Halloween H2O movie. So technically you can look at these as standalone stories, but I think that they have an opportunity to make a Scream 7, 8, and 9 cohesive trilogy. I think Isabel May would be amazing in Scream 8 to kind of, take the reins and Nev to be there to support her, and then for them to be together in Scream 9 and have a trilogy arc. I think that's what most people want. And there's still room to do other things. Like, I can't for the life of me, do not know why. I don't understand why Hayden Panettiere has not been asked to do a Paramount Plus TV show with Kirby as an FBI agent investigating Ghostface attacks. And it would be like a CSI type of a show, but with a long-running storyline. Like, the Kirby of it all makes it like a serialized TV show of 8 episodes, but each of the 8 episodes would be like a mystery that she gets to solve. Like, who's under this Ghostface mask? Who's under that one? It would be so brilliant. It's sitting right there. And Hayden is a TV actor by trade. She did Nashville. She did Heroes. Like, there's no reason why this hasn't gone about. And it can still exist like in streaming, like having a streaming Scream show, that would be a hit. And plus, I don't know, I really think Kirby needs to be involved again. I also just want to give Hayden Panettiere a shout out. So she has a book that came out, an autobiography. She's been doing a ton of press for it. It sounds like a very emotional, gut-wrenching book. I am going to be reading it. We're going to be covering it on the podcast, along with more discussion about this topic of Kirby down the road. So many different plates you can spin at the same time while doing the right thing by Scream's legacy and by Wes Craven's legacy. And I do think that Scream 7 proved that you can't just have anybody be the main character of Scream. You can't just have any actor be the lead. I think what makes Sydney such a great lead is she's very extremely soulful. She's inherently good, and she can carry the weight of the franchise. I think that Isabel May can accomplish a similar thing. That's why I think she would be great as the main character of Scream 8, and then let them share Scream 9. I don't think you can just throw anybody in there. Even just take Sam and how morally gray, morally ambiguous, ooh, I like to murder people. It feels so right. I'm going to put on my dad's robe. That was weird. That was fucking weird, guys. There's a reason why the universe didn't let that story continue, So I don't know. The truth of the matter is it's kind of out of our hands what happens, but it is important to, I think, articulate how we feel and put what we want out into the universe, because you never know. So anyways, everybody, please enjoy the rest of the episode with Joey. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Oh, my goodness. So today I have the honor of sitting with someone who is very important to the Scream community, or at least important to how I see the Scream community, an important content creator, someone who's really dedicated to Scream and has his heart in the right places about Scream. And I'm just always happy to have him on the show. So everyone, please welcome my friend whose birthday it is this week. Happy birthday, Joe. Joey DeBarini, aka The Vault. Hey, Joey.
Hey, Ryan. Thank you for that introduction.
What are the chances that we would be having an episode release for you on your birthday week? That was not planned. It just is just the way the cookie crumbled.
You did it for Sam Carpenter. It's her birthday too. Same day.
Happy birthday, Sam. I hope that, you know what, Sam, you deserve to have your happy ending. So
She does.
Joey, oh my God. Since we last spoke, we've gotten a whole new Scream movie. So the last time you were on, it was right before the holidays. It was the graphic was like a Christmas. It was like the Christmas episode, or when I was doing the Scream holiday episode. So and here we are. Now we have a new Scream movie. Oh my
God, incredible.
So you were one of the first people to have high quality Scream 7 photos of the movie on social media. And honestly, all of your Scream 7 photos, all of your Scream photos, everything that you put up, even today you put up an urban legend photo and this really cool kind of collage thing. Brilliant. I loved it. I love it. So why don't you tell everybody what is The Vault, what you do for these movies that we love?
So it's just basically where I post all my creations, or basically TV spots, any multimedia, anything throwback to the days of the 90s and the early 2000s. I'm big on media. So I love media, especially old vintage media. I got a lot. It's a space where I put everything. It's a hobby, and it's something I enjoy doing. And I have a lot of stuff on a hard drive that I used to joke around and call my vault, because I know I look around online and I'm like, some of this is not even here anymore. It's probably there somewhere. Someone may have it on their end, but it's not. And try to make a moment for fans to enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, here's how I see what you do. I feel like everything that you post, you don't gain anything from doing this or having the vault or doing these graphics. So I feel like what you do really is for the community, for the legacy, for us to look back on and be like, oh yeah, if you need a thing that says happy birthday Emily Mortimer, it's there. But if you also need this random image from Urban Legend in 1998, oh, it's there too. And oh, look at this cool, like I never, rare Scream 3 cast photo from, 1999, or, I feel like all of that stuff is there. So like, it's just all of these cool things, we'll have forever through you. So I really appreciate the vault for that.
See, like back in the day, I grew up with the internet coming to fruition, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was big on the releases and always online and basically doing what I do now. I was doing then.
Yeah.
And I would save on floppies and CD-ROMs. And so it's for the community. It's for me. It's like to get my mind out of everything and every day and just kind of zone in.
Yeah, well, I will say this, the last thing I'll say about the vault, and then we're gonna get to your thoughts on everything Scream. But the vault makes me happy. It makes me feel like we're always, because I never know what you're gonna post. I never know what images are coming, whether it's a Scream image, whether it's and I know what you did last summer image. So I never know what you're cooking up. But every time you post something, it kind of touches me. It's just like there's like a nostalgic reminder. It's just it keeps everything fresh in my head of all these movies that we love. So thank you again for your service. And everyone, please go follow him on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the Vault. So the Scream Vault.
YouTube too.
God, I always forget about YouTube. I'm just like, what's YouTube? So also before we get going, I wanted to give Joey the opportunity to talk about one of our dear director friends who has since passed in the past couple of weeks, Jamie Blanks, the director of Valentine and Urban Legend, someone who is kind of like intertwined in the Scream universe and in movies that we share as a part of like Scream in a way. He passed away a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, Joey was the first person I thought of whenever I found out the news because he does a lot of Urban Legend. He loves Valentine. He interacted with Jamie Blanks a lot on Twitter, so it's a very sad thing to see Jamie Blanks pass. So, Joey, is there anything you'd like to share about the passing of Jamie Blanks?
I feel terribly for his family. It came as a shock. I don't think anybody obviously saw that coming, at least, that's not in the public. But I love Jamie. I think he was such an amazing director. He had a vision that carried into the 90s trend, but very much went with 1980s slashers. And he was just amazing. We would have side conversations, private messages and stuff about movies he'd saw with his wife. And he was just an incredible person. And I really wish and hope we get to see kind of what he was cooking up, because he was cooking up something, and it's just it's a loss. It's definitely a loss.
It's a huge loss. He was young, this was out of the blue, and it's a real shame. So, but Jamie Blanks, thank you for what you did give the world with your art and your films. And I love your observation. Even though he was coming in the heels of like the Scream era in the 90s, his style was very 80s. Like Valentine, I think, is a very 80s movie. So, it's a shame. I hope to cover Valentine and Urban Legend in his memory over the next year or so. Stay tuned, everybody. All right, well, Joey, let's go on now to Scream. So I have to share with everybody what you told me after you saw Scream 7. So you said, I need to feel like this once every 10 years. Not to just like completely usurp whatever you were prepared to say about Scream 7. I would like you to expand on that, what you meant by that. So what did you mean by that when you told me that after Scream 7? Because I have an idea, but I want to hear it in your own words.
So, after leaving the theater, and there was just like a spark that reignited. You know what I mean? Just we had the Scream movies in the 90s, and then we got Scream 4 in 2011, and then to have Scream 7 after, two movies that were not hyper focused on our characters that were mainly throughout the films.
Right.
To have that was just an absolute glorious and great feeling. The whole vibe of the movie, I'm sure we'll get into it later, was just nostalgia without being nostalgia bait. I highly disagree with anybody who says it's just a fan service movie. It's not. It is in the sense of the storytelling, character development, vibe, feel. It's service to the original fans, in that way.
The people who say that and the people who use that as like a dig against the movie, or that's the reason why they're giving a negative review or whatever, I don't really believe that. I don't believe that's real criticism. If you look at the last three movies, I think by far and away, Seven is the least nostalgia bait or nostalgia slop version. I think it's the least homage, it's the least empty. It does so much of charting its own course without regurgitating the past. And whenever it does, like you would say the opening or even like the AI montage before Sydney goes out to leaves her house and finds Jessica and Marco with Tatum. Like those two, okay, sure, but nothing else. I don't really see anything else where it's overly nostalgic in the bad way or in the cheap way. So
Right.
I love your characterization there. But I think like what you are getting at is something that I definitely feel is like this feels like a Scream movie again. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Of course. I mean, I'm not one of those who thinks 5 and 6 do not feel like a Scream movie. They
Hmm.
feel like a left a lane, like the road was split in a fork and they took a different lane, which is good. You do need that in a franchise to stay long running, but it didn't feel like the Scream that we knew, that we grew up with. This definitely did. While charting its own course.
Well, and like I think Scream 5 tried to be, I think it tried to be a Scream movie. And I think that it did succeed to some level, to some degrees. But this just feels like a complete, like we're back in like 2012 or 2000, in the same universe. It doesn't feel like that much of a change. It just feels very natural and it flows logically from those other films. The big reason for this is, of course, Sidney Prescott. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on her storyline and the return of Nev and as the main character.
Nev Campbell. I mean, you can't do wrong with Sydney. You know what I mean? You probably could on paper, but Nev will never allow it, which is absolutely amazing. It's just beautiful to see her. And, like you said with Scream 5, and it, it's about emotion. Yeah, we're watching a horror movie. Yeah, we're horror fans. But it's about emotion that Scream basically grabbed everybody by the neck who loved it. It was the emotional storytelling, the
Mhm.
the character depth, the all of that. And I feel like the last two movies, while I enjoy them and I love them, I'm not going to say I hate them or anything like that. I don't feel like it had that complete emotion. And that's not a knack directly at, the main lead
Mhm.
or Melissa Barrera or anything like that, but you have to really love the character and have that emotional depth to follow that final girl, to really believe and follow the story and be invested 100% that you want to see what she's doing when she's going to be committed to a nursing home. It's like one of those, like, you want to feel like they're your family.
I don't know if this is hard to explain, but there is this feeling, and maybe this is what you were talking about at the very beginning whenever I brought up what you said to me back then. That weekend, like I felt it just felt so I felt so at ease. Like it just felt like there was just something like because like the first three of the first four, I should say, kind of just live in my body in a weird way. Like they're so known to me because I've lived with them for so many years, so many decades of my life, and they're so important to me. And so a lot of that has to do with Sydney and Gail and kind of that continuity. It just felt like we were back at home. You know what I mean? It just felt like
Exactly.
it felt so, and not. And I want to say warm, but I don't want that to seem like, oh, look at these losers, being so nostalgic. It's not about nostalgia. It just felt, to use Sam's word, it felt right. It felt like it felt like we were at home, and this is the way that things should be.
I think most people in life like to, if they have them, rewatch their home videos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And go back to a time and relive that in a way. And I feel like Scream 7 is exactly going home, and you're left after it feeling euphoric and vindicated.
I was thinking about this just today. And I was thinking like, no matter what happens after this, like with 8 and 9, I am fine. There's like a lack of anxiety that I have, a lack of anxiousness about what's next because we have this movie. You know what I mean? I feel like if they were going to bring Scream back in this big way, I feel like this movie needed to happen. Maybe if this would have been Scream 5, maybe some different people would have had more open minds to different stories after that. I hope that it continues on this path of being about Sydney and Tatum. But this, like, it just feels like something was fulfilled with Scream 7, with Nev, with the franchise, with the formula, with the story, with the integrity. It just feels like we're at home in a way.
Yeah, my anxiety is not 100% at ease because I feel like this is just the beginning. And I
Yeah.
felt like that since I left the movie. I'm like, oh, there's more here. Like, this feels like a setup for more continuation. And I think it would be a big mistake if they didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's going to be an awful movie if they go and just do a new cast or anything while still in the same universe. But we need to see Tatum more. I need to, grow with her more and feel see more of her story. And I think that's where they need to focus on.
No, and I'm saying that just again the most humble way. I want the universe
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
reward me and not be be like the universe say, Ryan, you're being selfish. Thank you for bringing Nev Campbell. Thank you for bringing this story to us of the universe. But I agree with you. Like I think that the next two movies should be about Sydney and Tatum. And I think it's really important to have them both. I agree with you. Tatum needs to be better explored. I loved her here, but this is the Sydney show. I was like doing notes on Tatum last week, and I was going through like would she be lead or supporting? And like the screen time and impact would say lead. But really, I mean, if you think about it, like this is the Sydney led film. I mean, like Tatum doesn't have any calls from Ghostface. She has nothing to do with the Stu plot. So much of the movie happens without her. She gets all of the action and she gets a lot of focus through Sydney. But even like all of that is still from Sydney's the entry point there. But that's beside the point. But I want to hear, what did you think of Tatum as a new character? Do you think that, what you just said about like that, how you felt about Sydney and that heroine that you described, like that feeling about her, do you feel like you could have a similar vibe with Tatum?
I love Tatum. I think Isabel May did an absolute amazing job. Hearing like the behind the scenes stories about how her and Nev would go out to lunch and get to know each other and work on that relationship so it translated on screen. And it definitely did. I want to see, like I said, I want to see more of her. And that doesn't mean I want to see less of Sydney. I want Sydney and I want it to make sense rather than just from a mama bear point of view.
Yeah.
But like I said, I feel like to me, if in my world, if my wish, the next movie would pick up right where this one is leaving off. And it's not finished. It's not just Jessica. It's not just Marco. And it wasn't just Carl. And they could really tie that in to some of the naysayers and, fix that. Not that I think it needs fixing, but they could really roundabout circle it. I don't know if that makes sense, but
So you want this to be Scream kills. I'm just teasing.
yeah.
I mean, I'd be down for that. I mean, people are always saying they want something new, and like honestly, because of who Jessica is and like the idea and concept behind these killers from the mental hospital who are kind of randos, it would make sense that there could be more of them.
Yeah.
So I like your idea. I would like that. I would love to see a full trilogy, one where we do what you just said, and then one big final film that kind of like ties up what was started here. So
Right.
so I have to ask, you were talking about, how natural Nev and Isabel felt. You know who else I feel like is in that camp with them, and he didn't get that much time to prepare? That's Mr. Joel McHale. To me, like the way that Nev and Isabel, they feel so lived in, they feel so at ease with each other and comfortable with each other. I feel like Joel McHale is right there with them. Like that, the scene with the jacket and the scene upstairs whenever Ghostface has Tatum by the neck, the family unit, it just feels like these people have been together for years and years and years. And I it's such a testament to the actors, to their chemistry, and to Kevin for making it feel that way. What are your thoughts?
But yeah, I'll never forget when I announced that Joel was going to be the new Mark or a Mark. And so many people were just not happy.
Yeah.
They just considered him comedy. And I even went as far as like posting a snippet of him in A Wonderful Knife because he can be a serious actor. And he absolutely nailed it. His whole vibe gave me Derek. It gave me Mark. It gave me I couldn't see anybody else with Sydney at all. And now that we've seen him, I never want to see anybody else. I can't even picture Patrick in this role. I don't think it would have felt the same.
I think the vibe would have been different. I mean, I think Patrick Dempsey, he can play light based on the Kincaid that we knew before and just what the movie was going for. I think this was the right call. The universe, again, thank you for working out the way that you did. So I want to get more into the family, of course, but I need to know about Gail Weathers and the twins. They were the carryover, the link between, 6 and 7. And they come in in Act Two, after we get to spend a lot of time with Sydney and Tatum and the new characters. And someone said it to me just recently. They said, I was so engrossed in the movie and how fast paced it was that I didn't even miss Gail until she showed up. And then it was all about her. And I think that was such a really cool way to explain it. But what are your thoughts on Gail Weathers?
I want to see more of her. You know what I mean? And it excites me when Kevin says in an interview on Happy Horror Time of, well, she wants to do all the movies. She never wants to not do these. And it's like, yeah, that's great. No, I love Gail. You can never say anything wrong about Gail. You know what I mean? She'll come for your ass.
So, were you surprised by Gail Weathers here? And kind of like she hits some very high pitches, both in the comedy that we know from, like, say, Scream 4, but also like the mystery, with Scream 3, with like the investigation, but also some really deep dramatics that we've never really seen from her to this degree before. I mean, yes, we saw her react to Dewey's death, but I just feel like what we see of Gail in Scream 7 is so much deeper on a dramatic level than we've ever seen of Courtney Cox in a Scream movie before. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite Gail is Scream 2.
Mm.
I feel like that is the archetype for the best Gail. That's just my opinion, but I loved her in this. I thought it aligned with that. There was more comedy. It took from Scream 3 and Scream 4, which, I mean, this is somebody who is now however old, so of course they're not going to lose their flair. It has to have continuation. I thought it was great.
Were you surprised by the nerve damage and also like the Sydney relationship and how there's a lot of great things about their relationship, a lot of familiarity and trust, but also still some wounds on both of their parts, especially Sydney's against Gail, that, even if they have gained all this history, Sydney still has some insecurities there.
Yeah, no, I thought the nerve damage was a great touch. The way that weaved in with their relationship was perfect. I loved watching their borderline discourse, of their past. I thought it was done well and not kind of in your face and gimmicky and just for show.
Yeah. Well, so in December, I remember like you had some thoughts about Mindy. So
Oh yeah.
what did you think of Chad and Mindy here in Scream 7?
Well, I went into the movie hoping Mindy bit the dust. I needed her to go. I didn't hate her, but I didn't love her at
Mhm.
all. I didn't really necessarily even like her. I thought she was always too much, too much in your face. And I love Mindy. I don't even like Mindy. I love Mindy. I thought, it's all about what you are given, so it's definitely not an actor thing. It's about character. And I thought her character, she didn't have much to do here,
Mhm.
but it was just enough that you got to know her more.
She grew here. We saw
Yeah.
her, take on different challenges, but also something that I wish that like Scream 5 and 6 would have done in retrospect is like give the twins scenes together. Let them be siblings. Let them be brother and sister. Because to me, that's where the fun side of both of them naturally comes out, right? And like they're both so funny together. Like Chad, it balances off her so well. I mean, they're genuinely funny, genuinely human, fun. It's just I don't know. I thought like the two of them together, their chemistry is what really I think changed a lot of hearts and minds about Mindy.
Yeah, they definitely should have not had the scene in Scream 6 of Chad and Jenna, and it should have been a Chad and Mindy scene discussing, like, hey, what are we going to do? Could our mom be in trouble? Like, should we stick around? Something like that.
Yeah. Well, so Joey, before we go on to, I want to get your thoughts on the killers, and then I want to talk about Kevin Williamson and kind of like the holistic view of Scream now, in this era of Scream. Um, I want to ask you about Sydney and like, is there anything like specific you want to hone in on Sydney when it comes to, a specific scene or a specific moment that was your favorite for Sydney here, or just even like what Sydney in Scream 7 means to you?
I loved all of it, but I just remember sitting in the theater when she has Ben go down the stairs and go outside,
Mhm.
and she shuts the door. And this is probably more on what I love about Nev more more so than Sydney, but the way she holds her arm when she shuts the door, like she's thinking in her head and she's turning around, and it was like, damn, that is just believable. It's such a small moment, and it's probably nothing anyone really looks at, but I just loved watching her be a grown woman, a
Mhm.
mother. I have cousins who have daughters, and I see that push and pull with one of my cousins right now, and her daughter is junior in high school and 17, and it's hard. They both want it, but they both don't know how sometimes. And I thought it was just so beautifully done. I think that is what I love the most, is seeing Sydney as a mother.
Yeah. Well, so one thing you said to me back in December was you referenced the shot in the trailer that's from the moment she arrives back at the little latte after Tatum's been kidnapped and she's on the phone. And you said her face, she just looks so tormented. She looks so upset. And like you wanted to see that. Do you feel like that was delivered for you, like that level of emotion that you wanted from Sydney?
Well, what I was meaning then was more so like I wanted her to be like gut wrenched, almost like on the brink of death, and that kind of fear. But I was 100% okay with the way the torment came through. Yes, it worked. It was everything I wanted. I was picturing it a different way, but it came through and channeled in the way it needed to.
Yeah. I think that Nev's performance, her Scream 3 performance is a bit showier, I think, in terms of like the more dramatic things. Like, she gets to cry more, there's more fear. But I think there's such an even keel to her performance here. Yet there are still really dramatic emotions she gets. This is the most unnerved Sydney that we've seen since Scream 3. And I mean, I know that's like duh, of course, because she was barely in Scream 5, but she was the lead of Scream 4. And this is just like, I feel like because it was her daughter, she was so bent out of shape in so many different ways. And I think that it was just such a great exploration of Sydney and the Sydney that we know, in so many different aspects, from, just her. I love seeing her walk into her work and like, just be in her environment there. But I also love to see how upset she was, seeing Stu and reacting to Stu and kind of like taking charge there. And even down to like the kind of exhausted, but like, still funny Sydney at the end where, past my prime, So what are your thoughts?
Oh, I love that. And I want to say something about Scream 4 and some of the things people say. They go, "Oh, I can't, you're going to tell me that Sydney was going to Woodsboro on a book tour and back to Woodsboro and she had a baby?" And it's like, well, where were you when she had a baby carriage in Scream 5? I mean, no one cared that she went back to Woodsboro then. I know that deviated from what you were asking. That always drives me crazy when I see that online of people, and it's like, open your mind. But no, as far as Neb and Sydney now, I mean, yes, she had a more emotional scenes in Scream 3. However, she's 47. She's 47. I'm going to be 41. And you get to a level like where, yeah, things have scarred you, but your tolerance for it is, you just have no tolerance for bullshit. So it goes hand in hand because you do break, but
Yeah.
you do have a tougher exterior, you know? So it worked for me. I know this comes in as number 2 for you compared to 3, but I don't know.
I
We'll
don't
have to
have it.
see.
Yeah, I don't have an official Sydney ranking out yet, but I
Oh, okay.
it's gonna be tough for me to beat Scream 3. I mean, you know how much Scream 3 means to me. I don't know. It's just
Oh,
like,
yeah, I know.
oh, but I love her here. I mean, the thing is, like, this is a great pivot to me asking you about your ranking. So get ready. The thing about Scream 7 is because now we have so many movies, I feel the sense of like fluidity when it comes to rankings and especially the Sydney movies. I love I mean, it's made me really appreciate all the Sydney movies. And like, if someone wants to give me a ranking that's like, oh, my ranking is like 4-2, 7-1-3. I'm like, thumbs up, great. I just think I'm just like kind of like having this moment with all of the Disney movies. I'm just like so happy with all of them. So, with that being said, Mr. Vault, I know you aren't great at giving me a ranking when it comes to Scream. I remember the first time I asked you, you just gave me the chronological ranking, and you gave this like um kind of vague description, being like they're all equal, and I'm like, Joey.
Well, it is hard to rank them. I mean, but if I'm ranking them, and
Mhm.
my answer probably still might not please you,
It's
but I,
fine.
I would say 1 and 2 are interchangeable. On any given day, 1 is just a beautiful movie. It started everything, but I love Scream 2.
Mm.
I am, if it gets down to it, I would probably have to say Scream 2 is my favorite. So with that, I would say 2, 1,
Mhm.
7, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I mean, that pleases me. That pleases me a lot. I love that. So I love that 7's so high for you. I mean, that's what I wanted. I mean, I wanted that for you. I wanted that for me. I wanted that for all of like the original fans of Scream who, there are fans of Scream too, like you and me. We're not just seasonal fans of Scream. Like Scream is like we're always talking about, posting about, thinking about, celebrating Scream, and I wanted people like us to kind of really feel satisfied with what we got in Scream 7.
Right. Yeah,
So,
when I first got out of the movie, it was like the original trilogy, 7, 4,
yeah.
5, 6. But I would even say 3 and 7 are interchangeable.
He-
3 is the closing of the original trilogy, and it was such an era, such a time. I mean, and that plays into a lot of my rankings too, is the whole release eras of them. It
Yeah.
it all ties into it, the experience.
Well, I do want to talk about the release eras. There's something very like specific. I thought you'd be the perfect person to ask. But before we talk about that, I want to ask you about the finale of Scream 7 and Jessica, and just kind of get your perspective on it. As a longtime Scream fan, this is divisive for people. I've tried to raise the Jessica flag and make people believe. But what are your thoughts on Jessica?
I did not realize I saw Scream 7 and I literally got out of the movie and then I went into the next showing. You know what I mean? So I didn't really have much time to like sit with my thoughts. I just knew my initial thoughts. And even after the second showing, I had no idea Jessica was going to be so divisive.
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't plan on that happening. I understand it to a point. I would have liked a little bit more, but if I didn't have that input, I don't know if I would feel that way because honestly, like I said, I left feeling like this is just the beginning.
Yeah. And doesn't Jessica remind you of like the killers of like 2 and 3 in a way? She feels like a Wes killer in the sense of like her screen time, the way that she's used. There's an art to doing a Ghostface killer. It's not always like the Richies and the Detective Baileys
Oh,
where they're in every scene. They're so present. There's an art to how to balance a Ghostface killer, and Wes showed us how he did that in many different ways. Sometimes a character can be a huge like co-lead like Billy or Jill, or it can be a hidden in plain sight cameo like Mrs. Loomis, or just an average supporting character like Roman or Mickey. So there's or Charlie. And I feel like Jessica is like in that Roman, Mickey, Charlie. I think the key word of what you just said is to a point. I could understand why she would be divisive to a point, but I also think that a lot of people are not putting in the effort to read what the film is giving us, to actually work with the movie, to actually engage with it. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Sydney Evans, she does not open up to anybody. You know what I mean? Like not to many, I should say. So when you see her in the coffee shop and she's having all this discussion about, my past is full of dead people. And she's having that discussion about her daughter with Jessica. You can tell that she has history. Do we need to see all that? No, because we know Sydney well enough to know that, all right, if Sydney trusts her, I trust her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that history is there. And also when you look at it and you realize that she had all these mental issues, she was in a mental institution with Carl. She was in a mental institution with Marco, who should be there guiding people to not be so crazy mental. You can
Yeah.
see that what went on there. People get in your head, especially when you're in a delicate situation like that. And to me, that's all I need to know that someone's absolutely batshit fucking crazy and they can go out and kill people. You turn on the news, you turn on YouTube, and you're going to see, hey, grandma can't believe her grandson is a killer. Or, you know what I mean? Like, people just do crazy shit sometimes. And that's what happened, but we needed to focus more on where Sydney is, what's happening. What was happening was Jessica, because she says it was her idea, was mind fucking Sydney Prescott.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of the mind fuck, what did you think of Stu, of Matthew Lillard, of the use of AI, etc.?
Oh, I loved it. I'd never been like a stew head or anything like that, but I loved it. I thought it was great. I had a feeling it was always coming because Guy in his interviews would always say that he loves Stu, and he'd be in interviews with Radio Silence and they'd kind of tease him about it. And I had a feeling that if Guy was involved, that it would translate on screen at some point.
Actually on my show back in 2022, he said something along these lines. He said something, "Oh, and Stu, I have this." Oh, well, never mind. I remember that
Yeah.
vividly. I was like, "Ooh, I'm remembering that." So it all comes full circle. But I'm glad that you liked him. I didn't feel like Matthew Lillard. This was just like the Stu from '96, except all grown up.
I'm probably, one of the older fans that probably, I don't know if all of them do, share the same notion, but like when I say I feel like this isn't over, I
Yeah.
would actually not mind to see Stu alive, to be honest, and have this all kind of weirdly spearheaded by him or even Leslie Marker or something. I wouldn't mind it continuing. I don't want to oversaturate it.
Listen, if you would have told me that I would feel very similarly to what you just said, 2 or 3 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you, but yet here we are. I like what we're doing, if that makes sense. And I'm not necessarily saying I want him to be alive, but I'm just saying, like, I want to see where this goes. I'm enjoying the moment. And I think that having Matthew Lillard be a part of these films, it really adds something. He made Scream 7 so much more special, I think.
Yeah, it was great. And I don't think that's the only reason people got in their seats was just because Matthew Lillard. No,
He wasn't even in the trailer. He was in it. We didn't see any visual of Stu. We heard his voice, once or twice. There was one like image of him in like this very exclusive trailer that was only shown in theaters for
right.
Wuthering Heights. That was it. Nothing else. So I get that there was a lot of publicity around him, but like, he didn't sell the tickets. He may have helped, but like I don't think that it was determinative. So okay, Joey, this was a big deal kind of going to Kevin Williamson. Kevin Williamson, someone who's very special for both of us, but particularly you. You love the faculty. You love teaching Mrs. Single. This is your era. You're a 1 and 2 guy, like you just said.
Ugh.
And now we had Kevin, get the opportunity to really tell a story that he partially wrote, that he more than partially wrote. He was the majority writer, and then direct and bring to life. What are your thoughts on Kevin's directing here and the film that he gave us?
Hey, s- I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. I think we deserved to get this film from
Mhm.
him, and he deserved to give this film to us. He is my era. Like you said that perfectly. Like I was 12 when or 11 when Scream came out. And then, I grew up on Dawson's Creek. I grew up on, anything Kevin Williamson. Kevin Williamson to me was like God. Like I was sitting at home writing movies, and one was called Don't Look Behind You. And I literally wrote three of them on floppy disks. And it was all inspired by Kevin. I love Kevin. I can't say enough great things about Kevin. I think he's such a polite, kind person. You as well know he exchanges privately, and he's just a nice, humble, great person. And I'm so happy and proud of him that he was able to do this and honor Wes without having to be like, this is a Wes movie and all that. He got his glory and he deserved to.
Yeah. So, were you surprised by any of the directing choices by Kevin? Well, so for instance, I didn't know what to expect from Kevin. Kevin directed Scream movie because Teaching Mrs. Ingle was so long ago. I was expecting him to have very like dialogue driven, character driven scenes, and I think we got plenty of those. Like Sydney and Tatum talking about the jacket, Sydney and Tatum talking in her bedroom, Sydney and Gail talking at the dining room table over and over and over. There are a lot of dialogue heavy scenes. I was expecting that. He delivered that in a really nice way. Things I wasn't expecting. Kevin has this like I guess true affinity for 70s horror movies, which we knew he loved Halloween, but he really went all in with Halloween, Jaws, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Black Christmas. So many homages to those films. Where again he wasn't copying. He was doing his own thing and using them as like a topping. To kind of just like pull something extra in, something meta out of he was setting up in terms of death scenes, in terms of a suspense. So that really surprised me. But also the bigger thing about Kevin that surprised me, there were just certain things that happened throughout the film. One of my favorite moments of Scream 7 is after Tatum gets Marco down. She's ready to leave the coffee shop. She's won. She's beaten him down. She turns around and the other Ghostface is there. And seeing the other Ghostface rise up in slow motion, and then they run at her together, and Ghostface's mask goes right into the camera, and it cuts to black. Oh my god. Like, that has never been done in a Scream movie before. We've never really had slow motion. We've never had the same shot, like 2 ghost faces at once besides Chad, and it's just something so sinister and deeply disturbing about that moment. The construction, the idea behind it, the execution, that is something that Wes didn't do. It's not something that Radio Silence did. That truly did surprise me. Like, that's, to me, the sign of a skilled filmmaker. That's a really thoughtful way to kind of, like, close out a big sequence and go into the finale, you know?
Yeah. I mean, when that shot was released of Hannah swinging in one of the promos, I just knew this was going to be a beautiful movie. Yeah, no, I can't tell you the last time I sat through a Scream movie, like feeling like I was a little kid, like holding my neck, like, my God, what's going to happen? Like I did that in this movie. And, one of those moments was when the two ghost faces were coming at Tatum. He nailed it. I think he nailed it.
Yeah. It's just like it's so interesting to me because like there are very suspenseful, quiet scenes. I feel like even though this is a pretty quickly paced film, there are moments, a lot of sequences where Kevin's suspense really takes its time. Like even like in the Hannah scene, I feel like there's extra minutes, seconds in there. In the Mark scene in the garage, it's very deliberately paced, building up to it. I guess I was just surprised by Kevin's ability to get the character stuff completely right, but also get the horror suspense and do new things. Like, people are hot and cold on the Lucas kill. I'm a hot, okay? I think that it's so gross and gooey and just like, a different type of kill that we've ever seen before. And I guess just the violence of it all and like the grotesqueness, it just feels like Scream never went in that gory way, where it's kind of funny, but I don't know, maybe I guess Fuck Bruce Willis was similar in a way, but like there's something
Ugh.
clever, creative, and gross about it in a way that Scream never really was. And I thought, again, that was Kevin being original and unique in a way that Radio Silence even really wasn't. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I hate the fuck Bruce Willis line, FYI. But no, I love that scene. I thought that was awesome. I want to see gory. I don't want it to be an overly gory movie, but I want to see Drew Barrymore with her guts out hanging from a tree in that visual likeness.
Yeah.
And I thought he did that, especially with Hannah swinging in her guts. I enjoyed Lucas, being a beer tap. I thought that I thought it was an awesome kill. It wasn't overly done in a clown way. It was done. It just was done. And then after the fact, when you realize that it was probably maybe Jessica who did it, it's even
Mhm.
more like, damn, that bitch is fucking just nuts.
Because I believe it was Jessica. For a parent to kill their own child, that's deeply sinister. That's dark. And again, I love that Scream 7 went. It didn't give like the easy answers. It didn't let Lucas survive, happenstance because it was mother and his mother couldn't do it. Like she killed her son. That's amazing.
Throughout the whole movie, it seemed like Jessica could not stand whatever came out of her son's mouth. So it was kind of comical
Mhm.
to have that as that's what's now coming out of his mouth. I don't know. I thought maybe I'm strange.
That's no, that's like 100%. I don't think she can stand her son. So Joey, you do a lot of artwork. You have your own photographs that you do. I'm curious to know what you think of the look of Scream 7, the landscapes that we got. I feel like this is like one of the first Scream movies we've had since I would say Scream 3, where we've had like huge wide shot mise en scène, like atmospheric type of photography. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I liked that. If I had a choice, I would add more.
Yeah.
But that's just me, and I love hills and everything like that. But I thought it was great. I think that's what probably Scream 5 needed more, especially for being Woodsboro. It needed more landscape shots. The look and feel of this movie, Scream 7, it made you feel like you were in a small town, and I loved it. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I
How
really can't say anything wrong with Scream 7, to believe it or not.
Well, I mean, me too. I mean, like literally, I have two little flaws with Scream 7, and they're so little, it's like not even worth talking about. But I want to ask you specifically. So you referenced this small town in Pine Grove. How about the opening, which is kind of like the craziest opening I
Oh,
think we've had probably since Scream 2, just in terms of concept and execution. Wow, maybe even the craziest opening we've ever had. What are your thoughts?
that opening shot when the movie first starts, when it pans down from the woods to the driveway, was like, that is like, orgasmic in a way because you actually feel like you're in Woodsboro. You actually feel like you're on Turner Lane. And it was absolutely beautiful. The opening scene The colors, the shot, the acting, everything was perfection in that opening scene. It was an opening scene that we needed something different. We needed it to feel alive. We needed it to give the energy that it gave. And I loved that opening scene.
I love how you said we needed to do something different, and yet we achieved that by going back to Stu's house yet again. But it's true. But I have to say, for the movie being so fast paced, because that's something that I get from people a lot, especially after we first saw it. Like those first 24 hours, even I said it a lot. Like it's a very lean movie in construction. Kevin really lets us live in the moment with those characters. There's like a good 10 minutes before Ghostface even really shows up in the opening for Scream 7, with them just walking around the house, looking and talking about the props and the phone call and the trivia and, whatever else. We get to know them in a way that we kind of got to know Maureen Evans and Phil Stevens going to the movies back in Scream 2.
Yeah. I mean, those actors were perfectly cast. They really were. I wish Jimmy was actually not cast and he could be in a future film,
Yeah.
because it's those kind of actors that I feel like sell a Scream movie. Grounded, believable, and not this new wave of pop culture, Instagrammy, TikToky people, even though they're portraying like charity that I respect out of that than I do of like some others.
Like, say, Madeline Klein from I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm teasing.
But you're right.
Definitely did. I have to say, Jimmy Tatro is fucking awesome. People were really loving Michelle Randolph that opening weekend. I love him. First of
Oh,
all,
I love him.
I have a crush on him, right? I think he's the hottest guy in this movie. But two, I actually think, to your point, his acting is so grounded, and there is a maturity about both of them and about their relationship and just the presence that he brings. Even though he's being a fan, he's kind of supposed to be immature, but he doesn't feel immature. You know what I mean?
No, he feels like, I imagine he's younger, but he feels like me. He would be doing exactly the same thing if I was dragging anybody with me to the Mocker House. I would if I was going to Spring Hill Estate, I probably would be like, take my picture here, take me doing this, and being like completely fanboy, and it was believable. And I think that's what I really, I think that's why I feel really connected to them, is because it felt genuine.
No, I agree with you 100%. Well, so Joey, I wanted to ask you kind of like as a big picture thing as it pertains to Scream 7, whenever I think about you and your work, in terms of the vault, I think of the 90s. I think of this like specific moment in time. We've talked about, Urban Legend. I know what you did last summer, The Faculty, Shuo, the Scream 1, 2, and 3. And even you referenced like that about Scream 3, that was like the end of an era in a way. And I just feel like when we think about that time, I feel like the original Scream films like 1, 2, and 3, they define that time so much. One, because the original was so groundbreaking, right? But then even still, like, I feel like the other Screams, because they kind of tower above those other films that were released around that time. Yet there is a very specific vibe around that time. Fast forward to Scream 4, even though it is standalone, Scream 4 is very emblematic of its time. It is kind of its own island in a way that's very reminiscent of like, what that moment in time was. And that's more of my generation. Your generation was the original trilogy. I was in high school when Scream 4 came out. So I guess my question to you is about Screams 5, 6, and 7, they exist almost what I'm deeming like the Halloween 2018 era. We're kind of extending past that now because it's been so long since we've been in this kind of mini era where we've had a lot of slasher movies come out and the horror requels, whatever you want to call them. I guess like on a macro level, how do you think about this moment in time, and like how does Scream 7 fit in to, this moment, if that makes sense? And how do you think we'll look back at this time with Screams 5, 6, and 7?
I would say, time changes everything. Yes, Scream 4 is its own entity within that time period, but I feel like Scream 4, I can think of Scream 4 and still get that nostalgic feeling. I would say years from now, so say 20 years from now, there will obviously be more Scream movies, and they're going to be probably far more worse.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, we're going to really appreciate that 5 and 6, at least a story somewhat fluid. We'll always have the gripes with it, but I mean, Scream 7, I would say, is definitely my and probably your H2O. It's going to
Definitely.
always be a nostalgia pit where it's like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I don't feel like doing shit today. Oh, I'm going to throw on Scream 7 and feel like I'm cuddled in a blanket and comfortable at home. and not want to cry like a baby. Like it's going to be one of those movies. I think the screams will hold to the test of time. I would love them to always kind of be where they are right now, but I mean, time changes, and I get that. But I think if you get the right people involved, the right actors, and people who actually really care about the films and care about delivering quality films to the fans rather than anything just to be a money gain, I think the longevity could be there. But looking back on everything, I think we're always going to love this time. I don't necessarily look at it as the Halloween 2018 trilogy. I was hoping more so Scream 7 would lead into that and be better. You know, there's a lot of flaws I have with those movies.
Well, can I present a counter to that? Maybe 5 and 6 belong the Halloween 2018 era. Because, I mean, Halloween Ends came out between 5 and 6, in that time period. And then there was a big lull because of the original plan for 7 and what the movie that we got. Maybe Scream 7 exists in its own era. Maybe we are in a new era of like slasher films that's going to be defined by Scream 7. I mean, Scream 7 is the second highest grossing slasher ever after Halloween 2018. Maybe Scream 7 is kind of like the planting a new flag for a new era that's similar to Halloween 2018, but different because Scream 7 exists in a world where Nev Campbell was the main character. She was on set for the whole time. She wasn't Jamie Lee Curtis on set for 5 or 6 days to do 2018. And then we have those prequel movies. We have a different kind of slasher movie in the modern era now. So maybe Scream 7 is the beginning of something new.
Yeah, and I hope so. I always look at Scream 5 and 6 more paralleled with Halloween 5 and 6,
Yeah.
to be honest. But I would like, I've already said it probably 5 times in this podcast, but I would love to continue this story.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to stay completely focused uh, in this story. Obviously, growth is great, but I would love to see more continuation. I don't want to see just a flip flop of this becoming a girls kick ass movie or anything like that. I do like Poker Face, which was, developed by Ryan Johnson and now these new writers who are executive producers on there. But I love that show, but it also gets very comedy and sticky and political. I don't want no political.
Same.
And I don't want it to become like anything sloppy and shtick like. I want to see this grounded storytelling.
Scream 7 is very three-dimensional, whereas I think what you're describing is very two-dimensional. Like the kick-ass girl boss, like,
Yeah, I know what you did last summer.
yeah, but like even worse, I can imagine like something like that could be worse, than I know what you did last summer in terms of being two-dimensional. I don't want any political bullshit. Like I think if there has been a lesson that anybody should have learned over the last 3 or 4 years, it's that let Scream exist separate from any political partisan leanings. Please, please, please.
Yes, agreed.
I love that you're hammering that in. Like, we need to say the chorus. We need to say the chorus because I do truly feel like Scream 7, I feel like it did so much right. And I think that it should be replicated. It should go on and on. Like, what we got in Scream 7, we should see in 8, 9. And I think not only with like the focus, but also the style. I wish Kevin was more open minded to doing other films, but, I understand and respect his work and his other projects, but, I would love to see that. But, I think if I could have my perfect world, Scream 8, let Tatum have her story. Let us see Tatum blossom. Let us see her be the best she could ever be. And then in 9, I do think that Sydney should take more of the center stage than not, if that makes sense. That would be my perfect world. And I want Gail Weathers to be there. I think people don't understand how important Sydney, Gail, and Tatum, like those three, those the holy trinity in Scream 7. And without each of them, Scream 7 wouldn't be the movie that it is today.
I totally agree. I think a Scream 7 is like a pilot episode of a TV series. And it's like, I want to see more. Like, give me a trilogy of this, and then I'll be comfortably okay not having Sydney around for a while and tell other stories. To go directly into another story, I think will disservice Tatum as being a legacy character. And if you do use Tatum, use her well. Grow upon stuff. Just, let's not just do chase scenes around Manhattan and call it that's growth because she threw down a mask. Really, try to tell us the story. I get show, not tell, but tell us the story rather than allude to a story that doesn't even feel cohesive since the movie before.
Yeah. Tatum in Scream 7, she is very human. She's very vulnerable. There's nothing about her that is like, I'm going to kick all of the ass. There's nothing
Yeah.
about her that is Sam in Scream 6 or Linda Hamilton. If anything, she is the exact opposite of that. She is almost like Laurie Strode in 1970, like that level of vulnerability. And to me, that was so refreshing. That was so human. That was so like, of course, that's how a 17-year-old girl who's never held a gun, that's how she would react to a gun. I remember when I held a gun for the first time and I was just like her. I'm almost afraid of it. Like everything about her was done so effortlessly in such a realistic way. And I hope that that continues on in her development for 8. I mean, Scream 7 set it up so perfectly for Tatum to have an excellent next movie. And I just hope that they keep that humanity and don't go for the stereotype.
Right. And that's exactly what they need to do. Don't try to recreate anything. Use what came before as a tool and expand. And I
Yep.
think if you do that, you're in for warm reception, high box office, and a movie that people will love for years to come. If you just try to regurgitate whatever we have, I don't know if that would work. I would love to see Tori Spelling in a movie too. I think that would be something pretty fun.
And I think she would do it. I actually think that she would be up for it. Joey, thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear you talk about Scream 7 and that you love Scream 7, that it ranks so high for you, and kind of like what it means to you from the heart. Because yeah, I feel like I'm almost like talking to another version of myself here.
I just want to say one thing to you. Like, Ryan, I love you so much, man.
Uh-huh.
Like, you're like a brother to me. I think, especially you went through a lot going through everything through this movie's release. I had a touch of it, but I am so happy that we were able to come out of this, vindicated,
Yeah.
really vindicated. And I don't say that in a cocky way to talk down to any of the assholes who need that back and forth. I say that in like really like here's a big ass hug, Ryan.
Aw.
We deserved it and we got it.
Absolutely. Well, I love you back, and I agree with you. It's easy for people to hear stuff like that because I've done stuff like that, and perhaps I have been kind of, like talking down. But like, it's easy to think that, but like to live it, and like to live it as someone like you and me who's been with the franchise for 2 decades, and to go through everything that we went through. It's really heavy. And now that we have the movie, I have a lot of peace. I have a lot of peace in how much money the movie made. I have a lot of peace in the quality of the movie. I have a piece of like, I have peace even in just like the shot of Nev when she's looking at Tatum after Jessica's dead, and she says, I'm Sydney fucking Prescott's daughter. That look Nev gives her, it just feels like, wow, it was worth it all. So
Yeah.
I love you too. And thank you so much for everything that you do go follow Joey, like his pictures, see what he has. Look forward to every vault post, every little peek that we get inside the vault. Please tell everybody where they can find you online.
YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, The Scream Vault, or Joey Noberini II.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me. So we are going through a Taylor Swift song of the week. I've actually wanted to do this song for a long time, and I kind of thought this is the perfect time to do it after Scream 7. But then once I figured out Speak Now month was going to be like the month of Scream 7 character centric episodes, I was like, this has to get pushed back. I think we're going to perfectly capture it though for the topic this week. So everyone, please welcome my friend Ashley. Hey, Ash.
Hi, Ryan. It's a good day. It's a good day.
Ashley, what is the Taylor Swift song of the week?
Ugh, I'm so glad you asked, Ryan. The Taylor Swift song of the week is Clean, aka one of the greatest songs ever made in the history of the world. I don't care what anybody says. This is track 13 off of 1989, which was originally released in 2014, re-released in 2023, but you listen to whatever version you like, aka the original. This is written by Taylor Swift and Imogen Heap. One of my favorite tangents of this song is I remember listening to 1989 and a girl in my class was like, "Oh, what are you listening to?" And I said, "Oh, Taylor Swift, her new album." And she was like, "Oh, I listen to real music." And I was like, "Oh, what's real music, Becky?" And that's what I said in my head. And I was like, "Okay, like what?" And she said Imogen Heap. And I was like, "So funny because she's a writer, collaborator on this album." I didn't say it like that. I just said, "Oh, really? She worked on this album." And then I saw the look of embarrassment cross her face, and it will never not be funny to me. But anyways, this song is about, to me, Clean She's using metaphors and talking about how something toxic in your life, of a relationship, and comparing it to addiction and coming out of that and not being like in that toxic state, literally or metaphorically,
Hmm.
however it makes sense for the person. And I love this song so much.
Well, so can I tell you a funny story about this? It relates to you.
Ooh.
I knew you loved this song. And whenever we were supposed to be listening to Taylor's versions, okay, I would listen to Clean on the Taylor's version, and it never slapped for me on the Taylor's version. I didn't click with it. And then once she got her master's back last May, it's almost been a year, woohoo, I finally got to listen to the real version, or like the original version, I should say. And man, I don't know what about going from, I don't know what specifically it is, but it's like two different songs for me. I was moved to tears the first time I listened to it on the original 1989. It's just one of my favorite songs from 1989. I love the message. I love the narrative perspective. I love even sonically, it feels like you're being cleansed often. Like you can almost hear the water in the song. I don't know. I love the metaphors, like you said. And I just want to give our friend Issa a shout out. He is a Patreon. He was actually on that group Taylor Swift episode we did after the Torture Poets Department, and he named Clean as one of his favorite songs in that episode. So clink glass to Issa. But yeah, I love it. Could you pinpoint like what it is that makes the original version so much better than the Taylor's version?
I feel like there's something about the production where it literally feels like drops of water falling on you,
Hmm.
and it captures it so perfectly. Like it literally feels like the randomness of raindrops,
Hmm.
but like also the perfection of raindrops and how like somehow they fall exactly where they should be falling, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Or like it feels like when you put your head in the shower, I literally don't know how to describe it other than like it feels like water. And like if I don't like I think it would be like if an alien came to the world and was like, "What is water? Like what does water feel like?" If an alien couldn't experience it, I would play them this song to explain what rain feels like.
Aw, that's
And
beautiful.
I don't think that Taylor's version captures it the exact same way. Like there's like this like essence missing to it. It's like don't get me wrong, I still like it, but it's just not like it is one song where I would say like for a lot of them I think like they're pretty equal,
Hmm.
but this song in particular I'm like I would always listen to the original.
Yeah, I agree. The message I get from the song is like when you fully get over something that bothered you day in and day out, and then it's like, you go by and one day you realize, oh, wow, I haven't thought about this. I haven't, dwelled about this. This hasn't even crossed my mind. I feel like it's like you're fully over it. And it's that moment when you realize, oh, time has really healed this wound. And you really do feel like you are the new self that you thought about and talked about when you were glacially getting over something.
Another thing I just thought of is like something about this song feels happy and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really good like way to describe moving through getting over something and the feeling when you have found success in it, but you're still like I don't want to say better, but like you're still like you're not necessarily cured from what happened. You've just become more resilient and almost like a better like a new version of yourself,
Hmm.
but there's still that like when you're in recovery for any form of addiction, there's always like you're still always working on that. Like you're never like I'm cured. It's like no, like I have um been sober from something or I haven't partaken in those toxic in those things that make my life harder or choices that I've made that have been really unfortunate or whatever it is. And like you're always working towards something. And I feel like this song is like there's something that feels like melancholy, but also like really like you're achieving something. Like it feels there's something about it that makes me feel like Miley Cyrus's The Climb, but also like Radiohead Creep at the same time. You know what I mean? Like it's just like makes me feel like those same feelings, which is weird for one song.
Yeah. No, I think that description that it's happy and sad, that's the perfect way it is to describe it. And I think that's why Taylor has it as the last track of the 1989 album and this period in her life. And I also just like the idea that it's almost like water carrying out things that are unneeded. Because that's like when a wave comes in, like whenever water comes in, it goes out and sometimes it takes things with it. And I feel like that's how you become clean, is like the water takes it away from you. I want to transition to like how I connected to Scream. And this may be silly, pretentious, but whatever. Like Scream 7 as like the moment that we are finally clean. Like when the Scream fandom, the franchise, the original fans, I would say, where we can feel what Taylor's feeling in this song from like what we've seen in front of the camera, but also behind the camera of like the past couple of years. And what some people may see as mistakes, or specifically like my opinion of Scream 6, it just feels like I finally feel clean after like, you know, the general approach to these new movies without Sydney, setting Sydney aside, and also just kind of like the bad stuff that has gone on social media and everything that's kind of followed from the time that Scream 5 came back, specifically between 6 and 7, of course. It just feels like Scream 7, now that we have the movie and we have this beautiful story about Sydney and Gale and Kevin Williamson directing it, and a movie that feels like a Scream movie again, I feel like we're finally clean of a lot of that toxicity that existed within the franchise. Am I completely pretentious, Ashley?
No, no, not at all. Or imagine if I was like, not for this reason. No, I don't think so at all. I think it completely makes sense. I think whenever something is heavy for you or something that brought you joy, like there's like something that puts like an ickiness to it.
Hmm.
Like it's almost like if like, you know, like when there's like a feeling on your hands and you can't, like if your hands are sticky or they feel dirty or something and you get to like be like washing them. That's kind of how I felt about like when I got to watch Scream 7 again. It just like kind of felt like I got to be like, oh, like this thing that I like brought me so much joy. It felt like I'm allowed to like it again. Like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of felt like I gave my own self permission to be like, yeah, I'm allowed to enjoy something. Like there's a lot of nuance to being a human and a lot of like things that like there's you can think of things in multiple ways. You can use like I personally think that like maybe using like some people need to use some critical thinking skills a little bit more often and to realize that two things can be true at once and that one choice or one thing doesn't make one person one thing. But something about like watching Scream 7 just like made me feel like joyful again. And I feel like that that's important. And I also feel like maybe like Nev Campbell could relate to this as being like I got my it made me so incredibly sad how like I just can't imagine like anything with like the main character if it was a man. Like I people are gonna roll their eyes at me.
No.
I'm so sorry. I cannot imagine any man not being in like the main face of their franchise because of a pay dispute.
Yep.
And her standing up and saying like I want to get what I deserve. I think that's amazing and I'm really happy that she did it. And I think she did it with a lot of grace and a lot of humility. And I think she was still understanding of why other people still wanted to take in like she wasn't like I don't know. I just feel like she still understood why everybody else wanted to participate in the movie and why because like she realized like oh this is important to Courtney. This is important to all of these people who are making this film. It's important to the fans. And I think she might have just been like, I'm optimistic that maybe I can go back one day. That happened. And I think that there is like this grace in that song and Clean, where it does feel, it feels kind of like out of control, but there is like this beautifulness, like raindrops, you know what I mean? Like they're kind of like completely sporadic and random and weird, but at the same time, like so perfect and
Mhm.
beautiful and like eloquent and just like comforting. Like I love rain. Like there's no point in the time in the world where I feel more connected to the earth than when it's raining. Like I know some people like love sunshine, some people love like lying in the sun. I'm like, no, I love when it's raining and maybe that's why I love this song so much. But Neve Campbell is like a sun shower. You know what I mean? Like oh my God, that's what clean is. It's a sun shower. It's like
Love
when
it.
it's sunning, or I mean, that's what we call it here. Do you call it a sun shower? I've heard a lot of people call it weird, different names. But when it's sunny, but it's still raining.
We don't have a term for it. I mean, so I love that. But probably we would call it a sun shower. But you know, I feel like seeing Nev promote this movie, like especially like that what she wore on the red carpet for the premiere, like that just oozes clean. Like that is the clean vibe. I feel like, but also just like even getting Sydney back in the way we got her back, it just feels so clean in terms of clean the song. It feels like the same Sydney as Scream 4. Like we're continuing that version of Sydney. And like with why I think of this, it's not just say, all of the really horrible stuff that happened to the fandom, to me over the course of like the last 3 years. It goes on to like even decisions to like, bring the trio back but not give them a scene together. Bring Sydney back but make her a very small extended cameo by killing Dewey without like, as a drunk, you know what I mean? Doing Scream 6, everything Scream 6. The fact that Gail didn't get an ending in Scream 6, the fact that they went back on her character development, the fact that they took Sam to weird places, the fact that Sydney wasn't in Scream 6 at all. It just feels like Scream 7 in the direction, in the writing, in Gail, in Sydney, and Tatum, and Chad and Mindy. It just feels like, wow, all of that is gone. It's been washed away. But emerging in a really good place. You know what I mean? I just feel like it's the perfect song to talk about like the cleanse that I feel in Scream 7 as just a great Scream movie again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the waves brought in Tara's asthma puffer and then took it away with her asthma.
Do you have any favorite quotes?
I really love when she says, when the butterflies turned to dust, they covered my whole room.
Mm-hmm.
I have two different versions of lyrics, and now I'm like, I don't remember which one it is. And then she says, so I punched a hole in the roof. And I'm just like, I love that. Like I've said before that 1989 like reinvigorated my life. Like I don't want to say it saved me because like, but it really did, like in some ways. And listening to it the first time and this being the last song, I'm thinking, like, how was I not sobbing in the fetal position?
Yeah.
And if anybody has ever seen Taylor sings this song, I'm pretty sure it's on the Reputation tour, if I'm correct. And she sings this, and there's a video of it. And she was in a lawsuit for or sexual harassment, and she ended up winning. And she's talking about how like being believed and being understood and being listened to, and how she's like, and to any of you, if you haven't been believed or you understand that feeling, like I hope like that like this song can like help you get through it. And it's like pouring rain when she's
Mm-hmm.
talking about that, and she starts playing clean on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody can relate to the feeling of feeling dirty because of someone else's action, feeling clean again is like one of like the best feelings in the world. And I feel like all of the trauma that the people have had within the screen, like the actual characters, I feel like, can you imagine how good it would be to take literally take a shower after experiencing all of that, but feeling safe? Like to me, like Mark Evans is Sydney's clean. Like he's
Yeah.
like that thing that like made her feel safe again. And
I'll go through some lyrics here. So, the drought was the very worst. When the flowers we'd grown together died of thirst. I love that imagery. It was months and months of back and forth. You're so all over me like a wine-stained dress I can't wear anymore. Ooh, that's good shit right there. But then, so some of the big parts of the chorus in the ending is the rain came pouring down when I was drowning. That's when I could finally breathe. And by morning, gone was any trace of you. I think I'm finally clean. The song kind of ends with her saying, 10 months sober, I must admit. Just because you're clean, don't mean you don't miss it. 10 months older, I won't give in. Now that I'm clean, I'm never going to risk it. And honestly, like that's how I feel about Scream right now. Now that we have Scream 7, I want more of Scream 7. I want more of like the Scream 7 world. I want more of the Nev and Courtney and Isabel and Kevin greatness. So it's just, I'm so happy to be in a place with Scream again where it feels like Scream. I love Scream 7 so much. Ash, any final thoughts?
yeah, I think my last favorite part of this song is I scream so loud, but no one heard a thing. I feel like sometimes in the craziness of everybody's opinions and the stupidity of, I don't want to say stupidity of others, but like just like the stupidity of sometimes like when people get stuck in one thought and it becomes so intense inside them that they can't see anybody else as human almost. Like it's like they forget that other people are human beings and like there is like more to them than a tweet or like a movie they like or an artist they like or whatever it is. And it becomes so loud. And I think watching Scream 7 with a big group of people that really loved it, like it made me feel like in a little bit more seen again. And also like in like the state of the world right now, like sometimes don't you feel like we're all screaming and nobody is hearing us?
Mm-hmm.
And that can be related to just social. Like, I feel like with all the toxicity before Scream 7 came out, it was really just like social media being social media. Like,
Hmm.
half of the people didn't even give a crap about what they were saying. Like, they
Yeah.
didn't, like, half of the people, like, half of internet trolls don't even know what they're talking about. They just jump on a bandwagon. And like, that is actually, like, I was literally listening to a podcast where they were talking about that like a few months ago, about how like bots and all of these things are like paid for, and like they almost like rile people up, like, to like get what they want out of it. And I feel like sometimes it's just impossible to be heard, but we must not give up, y'all. We must not give up. And that's what Taylor said. And that's what Gail and Sydney say. We must not give up.
I agree. So, well, Ashley, we love a 1989 song. Thank you for speaking about Clean with me. All right, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
Dear God, Ryan,